this. Welcome to the best gambling show on the internet. Today I have AP. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Today we're going to talk about his Washington football team. I call them the no names. And listen, I'm really excited about the no names this year. Firstly, now the over under win totals at 8. I think it's time to come in and place a big bet if you're into the future bets. Now, we know there's a lot of risk, and I'm sure AP is going to get into it, but I'm going to tell you why I think this is a really good over bet. And make sure you subscribe to my Patreon before the start of the season for every bet I make. Link down below. But let me just start with the fundamentals of everything. I think Washington will have a top 10 defense, and I think that's going to make a huge difference, especially in their division. And when I look at the Cowboys, I see a very, very vulnerable team. And if you came to me and said you could either bet the Giants or the no names to win this division, or you can go with the Cowboys, I would take those other two. It would be an easy bet. So when I look at Washington, I think they're going to match up good with really good teams. For instance, they got Tampa Bay on the schedule. Now, of course, Tampa Bay has more talent, but I love this defensive line. I love this front seven. I think this is one of the best front sevens in football, and that can cover up a lot of blemishes. Now, you add Fitzpatrick to this mix, and I am genuinely excited. Now, we know there's not a lot at wide receiver, but you got McLaurin. I actually like some of the young players. You can go into that. But you add McLaurin, you got Gibson. Those are at least two dynamic players on offense. And I think Fitzpatrick's better than people think. I say this every year. I get laughed at. Then he goes on. He covers spreads. He wins more games than expected. And we all know that if he continued as Miami's quarterback last year, they would have been in the playoffs. Let's be realistic about it. So when you add Fitzpatrick to this team, I don't see any negativity with that. The turnovers will probably go up, but this was a team that struggled even to push the ball down the field last year in the pass game. So at least you add that. I think the run game's going to be good. I'm going over with the 8.
Yeah, I think the odds are it's going to be over, and even then, I'm typically pretty more negative on this team than most fans. So, I know a lot of fans that are really high up. They're looking at like 11 wins, but I definitely think over 8 is possible. As you said at the beginning, there are risks. That some. Of course, every team, deals with it. Some positions just don't have depth. So, that's a concern. And then the other concern that I have is, especially with this team, I mean, there aren't too many other teams in a situation because it's the whole COVID and vaccine situation. So you have Ron Rivera, who just recently came out and said he's immune deficient because of the cancer he had. And, thankfully he was able to recover. But that's made his immune system deficient, and he's, basically trying everything to sort of convince the players to take the vaccine. And the Colts and Washington basically have the lowest rates right now in terms of vaccinated players. You have a defensive coordinator that, more than likely, given his political beliefs, he's probably anti-vax too. So, I mean, that creates a lot of internal drama that could really steer the season and take it off the rails. So that's a huge concern. Winning would cure all. So, if the team wins and if, there isn't much interference with COVID, like players coming down with COVID, and how Ron is really handling it, because I think he's not really handling that situation the best. He's even tried to bring in a doctor and try to have the doctor sort of take questions and basically convince the players to take the vaccine. So, I know the incentive is there from a team standpoint, but there's only like so far that I think that you can take it, and you can't you just can't, at the end of the day, force these players to put something in their bodies that they don't want to.
Yeah, because you can only bully people who are on the brink of making the team. You're not going to bully Montez Sweat, because I did see the rules, and I am a little bit worried about the forfeit. I asked you pre-show why you think it was 8.5, then it dropped to 8. And I think you answered my question completely, because we did get the forfeit rules and we did see how Washington is one of the lowest in vaccine so far. And it seems like it's legit starters. It's not like people on the cusp of making the team. So I guess that's why it did drop. And I am worried about the forfeit rules. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know if it's going to have that big an effect. But who knows, with Washington, bad things can happen. I think he froze out.
Situation, because he like personally feels like he's in danger, and so that's another reason why he's trying to push these players to take the vaccines. So but hopefully he's only trying to push it here aggressively early on before the season starts, and hopefully that tune changes. We'll see with that.
Well,
but in
and
terms
I have a
of,
question. Like,
the players and the actual.
this internet is shit. Okay, hold up. So I have a question. Like,
Yeah.
So one game I think that's going to explain the whole season is the game early against the Chargers. Like, because I think that's going to sum up how good this team is, because I think Riverboat Ron's going to coach well, but also I think that this is going to be a game where the defensive line takes over. They hit Herbert a lot. And also, could you talk about the wide receiver situation? Do you see anyone coming up that's any good?
Yeah, so we got a handful of receivers that I think could emerge. At least one of them should be able to emerge this season. Obviously you have Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, and then in the slot you either got Humphreys or Steven Sims Jr. Hopefully Steven Sims is able to bounce back from last season. But then behind him, you got, Kelvin Harmon, who's coming off an injury, and he was really promising before he got hurt. So he provides a big target. So there's upside there. Then you got the rookie Dimey Brown, who is a deep threat, and that's going to be pretty good for Fitzpatrick. Curtis Samuel's more of the gadget guy underneath, that sort of thing. You got Scary Terry that can also take the top off defenses, and then you can add another guy that can do that, along with Fitzpatrick not being reluctant to throw deep. And I think that's going to really help the offense develop from what we saw last year, where Alex Smith was just keeping everything short. I mean, even more so than Alex Smith normally would. Like, what he did last season, it was amazing and everything, but as far as his throws, he kept like everything super conservative. And that was just like basically helping the offense tread water and stay in games with our defense and keep it competitive. But now you got a quarterback in Fitzpatrick that can take those deep shots, and then you got some receivers that actually can go deep and make plays.
Well, and here's something people need to remember about Fitzpatrick. I'll use two examples: Stevie Johnson and Devontae Parker. Fitzpatrick, he forms great chemistry with one or two receivers on every roster. So I'm curious to see who the receivers he forms chemistry with during training camp. We know one's going to be McLaurin. I'm just waiting for the other dog to step up. If I had to put my money on someone, I would guess Harmon. And here's another question to you. Do you fear anyone in the NFC East? Like, what do you think Washington's record is going to be against other teams in the NFC East? When I was looking at it, I think they're going to go 4-2 against the teams in the NFC East. And the schedule actually is quite difficult, but like I said, what factored into my win total was I'm counting 4-2 against teams in the NFC East.
Yeah, I think 4-2 is pretty good. The Giants gave us fits last year, and obviously some of those struggles was their defense was better than expected, and just the quarterback play that we had was keeping us pretty much one-dimensional. So with Fitzpatrick, hopefully we'll be able to handle the Giants. On the flip side, Giants also made improvements, so I think it's going to be a pretty even matchup. So I wouldn't be surprised seeing one loss there. And then, with the Cowboys, I think we match up pretty good with the Cowboys. What used to be the strength was their O-line, and now it's a question mark for me. And that's in both phases, run game and pass game. They obviously they got a lot of weapons. We improved our secondary and we got our pass rush. So I feel like we match up well there. And then, their defense, obviously, the secondary is a liability. And really, I don't really think much of their D line. I don't think DeMarcus Lawrence is as good as advertised. He's a good pass rusher, but, he shouldn't be mentioned in the elite category. So, I think we match up pretty well against them. And then the Eagles, really, the only thing I'm worried about the Eagles is just, just keeping Jalen Hurts in the pocket and not letting him escape and create. Other than that, I'm really not too concerned about what they have in terms of playmakers offensively or their defense.
Because the Eagles are good enough to steal games. That's one thing people need to remember. I don't think they're the worst team in the league. I think they're good enough to steal games. And then also when I'm looking at the Cowboys, everything you said is completely true. And I'm not understanding why everyone's not taking a deep exhale and understanding that this Cowboys defense is bottom 5 in the league. Am I crazy? This is a bottom 5 defense in the league, and they really didn't add anything.
No, I mean, they only added something to the strongest area of their defense with their linebackers. So, I don't really see anything, to be concerned about on the D line. And then the secondary is the obvious weak point. So, unless they're going to go out and make a trade for Xavier Howard or something, I'm not too worried about their defense. And then on offense, they don't have an identity. I'm hearing, stories about how Zeke is now trimmed down and everything. It's like, are you going to use Zeke like you use Zeke, in the past? Or are you just going to sprinkle him in? He needs touches. And you got, now you got this new quarterback you gave a massive deal to, and these receivers that you need to feed the ball to, and Mike McCarthy calling the shots. I mean, it's like,
Mike McCarthy's the problem. That's why I'm so much more confident about this over 8 wins for Washington, because Mike McCarthy, he's honestly a below average coach. I've been saying it for 5, 6, 7 years. I know you've been saying it as well. He's not going to get the run game going. And then, like you said, another thing people keep overlooking is this offensive line. Like, I'm blanking on the name of their left tackle, but they're literally holding him together by like glue and paper mache. Like, he's so hurt. I think Tyron Smith, he has severe chronic injuries. And then, like you said, they maybe have like 3 legit starters on the offensive line, and they're going to have to use a little bit of a carousel. So I'm concerned about the old line, and I don't think they're getting back to running the football. And also, if they want to get in shootouts, that's fine, but their defense isn't meant to be in shootout situations. And I remember talking to you off camera, and you were like, they're still relying on Randy Gregory. And it was funny. And then I started looking at training camp and breaking them down. They literally are relying on him. They have no one else to complement DeMarcus Lawrence. Like, they are in a little bit of trouble here.
Yeah, I mean, last year they were just depending on Aldon Smith, and they got lucky that he played pretty decent for them. But, now they don't have him, and they're back to relying on Randy Gregory, and you know how that story goes. So,
yeah. And here's a thing. I think Riverboat Ron's the best coach in this division. And I think it makes a huge difference. especially since we know these are going to be close games. We've seen the Cowboys choke many games away. And then just pivoting to the Giants, did they do anything to fix their offensive line that I'm not missing?
No, I don't think they did anything to fix their line.
No, not really. And that is the reason. Like, I understand people who are high on the Giants. Won a lot of money with them covering spreads last year. Like, listen, I don't even think Daniel Jones is all that bad. But this offensive line, I'm warning you guys who are going to go all in on the Giants bandwagon. This offensive line was absolutely terribly heinous last year. It was one of the worst offensive lines. Now, they did get better when they switched their offensive line coach. I think it was like week 7, week 8. Don't quote me. They did look a little bit better, but this offensive line is a problem. And then when you're competing against Washington, that's the one area you really can't be weak on. I mean, you could go in to Washington and win with a weak defense, especially until Fix gets clicking. You can do that. But beating Washington with a weak offensive line is going to be difficult. And I don't mean to keep bringing up the Tampa Bay game from last year, but Tampa Bay's offensive line is nasty. Let's be realistic about it, especially how like Wirfs was out of this, like was nasty last year. Washington's defensive line tore up that offensive line. I mean, so I would not want to play Washington if I have offensive line issues.
Yeah, I mean, in that game, I think Montez Sweat got a sack off Tristan Wirfs. I think it was either his only sack or his second sack of the year. And then you got, Brady behind that line, who's made, basically a career out of different O linemen, including ex-Giant Nate Solder, by getting the football out so fast and making these linemen look better than they actually are. And, that was one of the things I mentioned when the Giants made a big deal with Nate Solder. I was like, that's a mistake. I know you need to fix the line, but you don't want to splash money on a guy from New England because Brady makes them look better than they actually are. So Brady, behind that Bucs line, that was the problem. He was getting the ball out so fast. So that was basically how he was attacking our defense and exposing some of the corner play, which hopefully is fixed this year now with William Jackson. So
what's your biggest fear going into this year about about the no names?
Biggest fear is somehow Fitzpatrick is struggling, doesn't get into a rhythm, and we're either stuck with Kyle Allen or Heineke, and that would be the worst case scenario, I think. Really, a lot of it's hinging on just getting Fitzpatrick to play like he has been the last couple of years. If we get that with what we have on offense, I mean, I think it's good enough to definitely get into the playoffs. And then depending on how dominant this defense is, we can talk about getting deeper into the playoffs. But that's definitely the biggest fear. I guess 2 minor things like depth at running back is a small fear of mine. You're relying on Antonio Gibson. You got J.D. McKissick on third down and receiving out of the backfield. Gibson does it all, but Gibson also got hurt last year. So, I can't count on guys that haven't shown me they can play a full season. So if Gibson goes down again this year, we are again relying on Peyton Barber, and that's not a situation you want to be in. You basically don't have a run game at that point. So really, I'm hoping that Jarrett Patterson, undrafted rookie from University of Buffalo, hopefully he's able to come through and fill in that backup role, because I don't want to see Peyton Barber back there, being the full-time back.
For me, that's the only way it can go left for Washington this year. Like, I'm not beating my chest saying they're going to win 11 games, but I think they probably win 10 games. The only concern I have is about the run game. And if it goes left and it doesn't work, that's going to be a problem for Fitzpatrick. I don't think it'll get to that point, but like you said, with the lack of depth, that's a problem. And we know Gibson, like, like he's kind of small. I don't know if he added any weight during training camp. I don't know if you have any news about that, but he is kind of small. And the way Washington use him, they use him kind of like a battering ram. Like he gets like 30 touches a game if you count the catches. So it is concerning. And anytime you get Peyton Barber in there, you just know you're not getting anything done.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Gibson added weight, but yeah, you're definitely right with the way they used him and they run him. They're not shy about running him between the tackles. You know, I definitely like the run game better last year than under the years with Jay Gruden. I mean, Jay Gruden wouldn't really run the ball unless Rob Kelly was his running back.
Yeah, Fat Rob. And if you had to guess how many wins Washington gets this year, how many would you guess?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be on the conservative side. I'm saying 9. I'm in that 9 to 10 win range. Um, you know, if everything goes normal.
Is 9 enough to win this division?
It might be still. It might be still. I mean, there's still too many question marks. You know, everybody is just putting Dallas in as a favorite, but you know, they definitely have question marks, and any injuries isn't going to help them. So, uh, like you said, they're going to be in shootouts unless they're going to all of a sudden run the football, but their line isn't what it used to be. And that's how the Giants should have been building. It's kind of like how Dallas built, you know, 5 years ago. You know, you drafted a running back high. Now you don't want to waste him now on a rookie deal. You want to get the best line in front of him, like the Cowboys did with Zeke with his first 3 or 4 seasons. So they're making Saquon run through a bunch of tackles, getting him hurt. You know, it's a big waste.
Well, and they're also wasting Daniel Jones. I don't know if you think Daniel Jones can play or not. You can give your opinion, but they're also wasting him with their lack of offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too high. Maybe you recall I wasn't too high with Daniel Jones.
Me neither.
You know, yeah, he definitely has his areas of weakness, but yeah, I think he can be a starter in this league. Maybe not, you know, a top 10 guy, but you know, definitely somebody if you can build around him, you know, enough to win. So yeah, I agree. Not getting him the protection, he has the whole issues with fumbles. You know, if you had a better line in front of him, that you're going to do, you know, pretty well with both your big investments. You know, Daniel Jones and Saquon. So I think they're wasting those draft picks by not helping out that line, and that's been an issue for how long? I mean, you know better than I do how long that's been an issue with the Giants.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on that because I know there's going to be people in the background waiting to bet the Giants, and I understand. It's just this. I'm just trying to explain to you guys how bad this offensive line is. Like I don't use like bottom 3 in the league lightly. It really was last year. So
yeah, and I mean, and I have questions about Joe Judge. I'm not sold at him. What I saw from last year, you know, didn't sell me like he's going to be the option going forward. So,
well, and that's why, if you get to a stalemate with your analysis in this division, you kind of have to tip your cap to Washington. Like last year, it started really ugly. It really did. But also, Riverboat Ron was taking chemo. I don't like excuses, but if you looked at how Washington played like week 8, week 9, once he got rid of cancer, I'm not sure the exact date, you saw a complete transformation. And when you look at these coaches, Mike McCarthy's trash. Joe Judge is still unproven. He's very, very conservative. He actually held that offense back a lot. He loves punting, doesn't go for it a lot. I'm like 4th and short, which we can go on about that all day. And then the Eagles coach, no one knows what to really expect.
yeah, I mean, I'm 100% convinced the Eagles just hired that coach just to try to get some sort of version of Frank Reich. They wanted that offense back. That was the guy that they I guess let get away, you know, that they probably would have, if he was available, Frank Reich, they would have hired him in a heartbeat as their head coach. kind of like how we had Sean McVay with Jay Gruden, and we just like, okay, yeah, here you go, Rams. Take Sean McVay. We know Sean McVay is really good, but we're gonna hold on to Jay Gruden. Like none of these franchises have the balls enough to, fire a coach and hire from within like that. So
No, none of them do. AP, thanks for joining me. Good luck to the Washington No Names this year. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe. Okay.